So this is a question that is asking you to calculate the area of a right angle triangle, and because this is about area, then we've got our trigger there, and we should be saying to ourselves the formula is, and whenever you're dealing with area, volumes, anything that involves a formula, then the recommendation is that you write it down, because it gives you a kind of a direction of what information you need to be able to then solve the problem you've been given. So the area of a triangle we recognise is a half BH. There are lots of ways of thinking about this, but we're really thinking about a triangle has a base length, it has a height measured at right angles called the perpendicular height, and basically it's half of a parallelogram. If a parallelogram was to be calculated, then it's base times the full height, but we want a triangle which is half of that. So we're going to do a half times the base times the height. Now when we look at the picture we've been given, then we can see here that we have the right angle, so we need the perpendicular height. So we've got a length here, we've got something that's perpendicular to it, so basically the question's shouting out at us to find this length here. We can see that it's about a right angle triangle, and there we go back to our knowledge of what can we use as a technique to find missing lengths in right angle triangles, and quite often it comes down to Pythagoras, trigonometry, similar shapes. Well, we haven't got two shapes going on here, so it's not similar shapes. We haven't got an angle to find or given another angle apart from the right angle, so therefore it's not going to be trigonometry, so it must be Pythagoras. So again, when we realise it's Pythagoras, we should be thinking formula, what's his theorem, and basically what Pythagoras found was that if we've got a right angle triangle and we know the lengths of two of the sides, then we can always find the other one, because when you square the lengths of the two short sides and add them, it always equals the length of the hypotenuse squared. And what we've got to always remember is that the hypotenuse is always the longest side, so the C is always where the longest side is. So when we come back to the picture, we can see that if we label this A, B, because these are the two short sides, and C as the longest side, then we can see that we can work out what the height of the triangle is going to be to then find the area, which is actually what the question wanted. So the formula says that we take the short sides and square them. So we've got 7 squared plus b squared. We don't know what the length of b is yet, and the formula or the theorem tells us that it's going to equal 25 squared. So on the calculators, it'll remind us that 7 squared is 49, 25 squared is 625, and therefore b squared is going to be equal to the square root of 625 take away 49. So we get our calculators, and we're doing the square root of 625 minus 49, and that gives us an answer of 24. So this length of the triangle is equal to 24. Now I know it's confusing sometimes in maths because we're using the same letter in two different contexts, but remember it's all about definitions. In this formula, b is the base length of the triangle, and in this formula, b is the length of one of the sides of the triangle, one of the shorter sides, not the hypotenuse. So we can come back to find the final answer then. So the question was about the area of the triangle. So the area of the triangle is equal to the base length, 7, times the perpendicular height of 24, and the question or the rule says that we halve that answer, and 7 24s is 140, 168, and we're halving it, so we get half of 168, 84. We've got to remember all the time to look out for this, because when we look at the actual answer line, we can see that they're giving you no units at all. The question's worth 4 marks, so there's obviously going to be quite a bit of work to do to make sure we get all those 4 marks. So it's something to watch out for. This question is requiring you to make sure you've written the units. So we found the numerical part of the answer is 84, but we must tell it the units that would be measured in. And because area is about how many squares fit in the space, so it's about square units, this is going to be square centimetres because the original dimensions were in centimetres. So that's how we can do this kind of question. If the formula is there, make sure you write it down to give you an idea of what information you need. If you haven't got all the information, then obviously you've got to ask yourself the question, what can I do to get other information? And we saw from this question it was about a right angle triangle, which allowed us to then use Pythagoras' theorem to work out the missing length needed. That's that question done, guys.